So Nintendo did not show up at the Game Awards on December 7th, but they were not absent from making major announcements online, as early in the morning on December 7th, we saw them go live with a new Pokemon Indigo Disc DLC trailer, and then late at night, right whenever the Game Awards main show was kicking off, we got the surprise announcement that 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 brand new N64 games are being added into the N64 NSO app, and it was a shadow drop announcement of 2 of the titles, and one of them we had known about previously. And this is very interesting, following up the recent confirmation that Force Gemini would be headed to Nintendo Switch Online, because Nintendo went out of order on the roadmap of games that they had communicated to us, with the next logical addition here in North America being 1080 Snowboarding, and to our surprise, we were going to probably see Force Gemini hit first. Well, as you can see with the following post, 3 classic N64 games are now live for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members: Harvest Moon 64, 1080 Snowboarding, and Force Gemini. Which are you playing first? And in today's video, I want to boot up some of these games and have a broad conversation together with what this may signal for the future of new Nintendo Switch Online additions to both the base tier and the expansion pack going forward. What's up, Nation? Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification if you're new here to join Sunbro Nation. And as mentioned, guys, today we are discussing the brand new Nintendo Switch Online N64 update. And to give Nintendo credit where credit is due, I expected one game in the month of December, and you know I've been very critical of them when they go long periods of time without updating their library of games for NSO, considering it's an ongoing subscription that you're paying for. And to my surprise, they dropped 3 N64 games in the same update. We have never seen them do that before. We did have Mario Party 1 and 2 drop together, I think last year this time, so that was kind of a big Christmas gift then, but now we're getting 3. And I'm gonna first hop into 1080 Snowboarding on the list today, because this is the one that I have the most childhood nostalgia for. Like, played this game for hours and hours. I'm not entirely sure how to work with like the licensed music. I might have to turn down some of that in the background, but anyway, we're just gonna hop straight into some gameplay. And if you didn't play this back in the day, you might not think like it's all that, but I will tell you, as somebody who grew up as a big fan of like Tony Hawk games, and then you kind of want to get into that with on the snowboard side as well, this game was excellent for me. And so you can do tricks off of things here, and oh boy, man, I guess I just don't remember the controls. Okay, so we have kind of B to grab your board, and then of course you want to try not to take damage and wipe out. And you're seeing somebody who's playing this game for the first time in like 10, 12, 15 years maybe. I don't know how long it's been since I played this game, but played it a ton with friends growing up. And I think I'm doing it right for if you press and hold A, you go just a little bit faster, it seems like. But we do really got to talk about, man, the responsiveness to the grabs is way worse than I remembered it. I really thought that it was like you press B and you just immediately do it. And you can. I'm probably just kind of screwing up the timing on it. But I was very surprised and excited to see, while Nintendo had really like no presence at the Game Awards in terms of any kind of first party big announcements, I was actually pretty hyped to see that they did actually show up on December 7th just with different type of announcements, and this being a big one right whenever the Game Awards was getting kicked off. And I was hoping we were going to get some announcement from them on stage. It's like, no, we're just going to take to Twitter or X ourselves and kind of do things on our own terms, and that's what we saw them do. And clearly I've lost here because I don't think I have any chance of redemption. And I forget too, you almost have to like kind of repress A whenever you're like, it doesn't just like go down automatically. And I know there's like ways to do more complicated tricks too. What's going on here? I guess we have enough damage that we are actually in danger. So that's as much as I have nostalgia for this game, it clearly the skills have not held up over the years. But I was very surprised to see 3 additions all at once. Now we're gonna hop into Force Gemini for sure, because that's a Rareware game that I actually don't have any real level of nostalgia for, but in terms of the kind of like, I guess, appeal, I'm very excited to check this one out, because Rareware, if you don't know, was one of the best developers in the N64 era, and there was a lot of kind of talk on whether or not, I think we get this game in widescreen as well, or we have the option to toggle widescreen. There was a lot of talk about, whether or not, because Obviously, Nintendo has to involve Microsoft with getting the rights to go ahead and bring these games back to NSO since they own Rareware now. There's a lot of talk on whether or not Nintendo would bring many of the Rare titles over. And I think whenever you're looking at a kind of more of a deep cut title from them, like this one, Jet Force Gemini, I think you can now safely say that there's no reason we shouldn't see Diddy Kong Racing. There's no reason we shouldn't see games like Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Tooie, all of that. We should definitely, that is on more than on the table since we have Jet Force Gemini. So the other thing that this update did is that it kind of broke the mold as far as we're out of, clearly at this point in time, we're out of the roadmap of N64 games. So we know now that Nintendo will go off script from that roadmap. They don't have to have a roadmap out in order to just continue to drop new games, and they will just shadow drop surprise ones at certain times. And that may be what they stick to going forward now. And we'll go ahead and I'll get into some gameplay with this because whenever we come back to this conversation, so that way we're not just watching the cutscene talking about this, because I do actually want to experience some hands-on gameplay as we discuss the future of the roadmap. So we're kind of in the first initial area here, and you know, one thing you realize with N64 games is that before we had the two analogs and you still had to do shooter type of games, it was definitely a little bit more clunky. You do have some nice controls. You can jump pretty high in the air here. Also, you can like hold the right or left C button to kind of like drift across right to left, and then you can even crouch down and things as well. And then in addition to that, you are able to roll over while you're crouched down, and you can aim, which of course is inverted controls, which I will switch in the settings if it will let me, but we're not going to play too much of this for right now, because I just kind of want to show you guys these games, see how beautiful the graphics really do look, because even though this is an N64 game, I will tell you right now, just when it is all cleaned up like this, and you kind of have these you know, it's not a super low resolution, super pixelated image, you do realize that it just looks incredible. The Rareware like kind of drums in the background for the soundtrack too. I mean, when I say Rareware really had some of the best games of the N64, I mean, I seriously mean it. Like they really did. And I will say that in terms of the update roadmap schedule from here, Nintendo, did this set some kind of precedent now for N64 games where we can have multiple added in the same month? I think it did, and I know that we had that kind of before with the Super Mario Party games 1 and 2, but these are 3 different games not related to each other at all that all got added into the service simultaneously. I think that as we get into more of the deep cut scenario of N64 games and not everything is like the big first party games, we might see it go a month or 2-3 months gap, but I think Nintendo will start to stick to more of a, okay, if we went 2 or 3 months, we're just going to give you you know, potentially 2 or 3 games all at the same time in the service, which I am very much a fan to see, especially on N64, because these games tend to be a little bit more lengthy and have you know, a better story and more intense or more robust gameplay mechanics than what you have on the NES and SNES and things like that. So what we do see Nintendo do when we get later into a console's life cycle is that the updates tend to get less consistent, but they also turn into just batch updates. And I think that that's what we're going to maybe start to see now with N64. Now, if we do get a games roadmap update for N64 games at the upcoming February Nintendo Direct, well, then at that point, we may reevaluate that statement. Maybe they're going to stick to more of a rigid update schedule. And I do think they might still do that kind of with Game Boy Advance, because we're still in the infancy of that. But outside of the Diddy Kong Racings, the DK64, the Smash 64, you know, and a few other missing ones that are from a first party perspective, we're really going to be talking about a lot of the more third party licensed games on the N64, and I could definitely see some of the smaller ones whenever they come over, that we will likely, instead of just having one and that's the big one for the whole month, we may get this 2 or 3 updates all at the same time. So Jet Force Gemini, initial impressions for somebody who doesn't have a ton of nostalgia for this game are just like you know, very positive. This is like going back through a window in time, you know, and a rare developed game. I definitely recommend people to check this one out. I do think like just early on it's very fun. I wonder if we can figure out the widescreen thing real quick, because I do know that I saw that as an option, but it might be from the main menu and not just in the options itself. But we'll just see if we can toggle it on. That is one thing, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but with with NSO games, if only, yeah, here we go. If only, oh, is it just stretch it though? Well, I don't know what's going on with this exactly. The widescreen on, it might just be like a stretched image, and if that's the case, that kind of sucks. But for me, like having widescreen support on N64 games is just a really cool thing. I can't tell if the image is stretched. It might not be stretched. It's just more, it's like got the black bars on the top and bottom now, almost movie style. So why they did it like that, I don't know, but I know GoldenEye has like true correct widescreen, which I just love to see. And I wish that they had an option to enable that for all of the N64 games. Maybe Nintendo Switch 2 NSO, we might see something like that, but we'll go ahead and go back to the game selection menu, and I do think we'll at least briefly, oh, hang on, we're doing this wrong. We'll at least briefly check out Harvest Moon real quick, and then I don't know much to expect about that one. But then we'll also just kind of briefly touch on exactly what could happen with N64 and GBA from here, because, you know, there's no reason to think that Nintendo might not kind of reinvent NSO whenever it launches on their next generation hardware. And I would hope like an update to all your games, but to allow you to, even if they don't natively put in widescreen, but they allow you to just to do, let's say, let's just put whatever here. Let's say they just give us the option to stretch the image even. I would love for it to be something where it's natively built in so it doesn't stretch the image. But even if it did just that, having the option to eliminate those. Oh, hang on. What, or did it double that name? Okay, yes. All right, I'm pressing A. Maybe I gotta press start. Some of those N64 games had a weird thing where if you didn't press start, it was yes, A. Okay, I guess I had to name a few different things. I just wasn't paying attention there. So anyway, Harvest Moon 64 is another game I have not played. So this is, I want to say like Animal Crossing vibes almost. But, you know, let's get some customization options on the sidebars here. Like instead of just what they are, if we could make them something different or make them black entirely, even that would be a little bit of a step forward. I mean, I remember back on the Game Boy player, on the GameCube, I had all types of customization options for the sidebars. And I just wish that it was like that on NSO. So hopefully Nintendo looks into some of that stuff. But in terms of the frequency of games, I mean, I'm just elated to see 3 N64 games drop at the same time randomly in December. And now we're in a situation where maybe we're not always going to get trailers for games ahead of time on N64. We might just get them shadow dropped, like 1080 Snowboarding, or you know, or even Harvest Moon 64, which I can't remember if this one was already out in Japan or if it was going to come out. Let me know that in the comments if you know. But anyway, this game's probably going to have a little bit of setup and some, you know, talk to NPCs to kind of get pointed in the right direction. My impressions of Harvest Moon, from what like I am picturing in my mind, is that it's kind of similar in the to like the Animal Crossing style of gameplay, but I'm not really familiar with it. So it may be very different than that, and I just don't know. So this will be another one I'll have to play through further. But great December update. Let's hope that it's not too late into the month. We might still see a surprise Game Boy drop with Game Boy family of systems, whether that be Game Boy Advance or even the base tier may get another update. But if we get a Game Boy Advance game this month, that could set a really good precedent for having 3 N64 games drop, and maybe even some kind of Game Boy Advance game would be very welcome addition. So I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video in the comments down below. If you have any nostalgia for any of these 3 N64 games, if you were very excited to see any of them brought back, and do you think that this somewhat sends the message to players that, yeah, we can maybe expect upwards of 3, 4, 5 N64 games all being added at once in the future? Or do you think Nintendo will drop these 3 and then we may not see them do any kind of NSO updates for the expansion pack for months and months to come? And let's hope that that's not the case. But regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.